Organized labor in Nigeria may settle for 100,000 naira minimum wage as the Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage commences daily meeting for 5 days to reach a consensus. Now, some sources in labor have actually indicated that the union leaders were willing to review their demand from over 400,000, precisely 494,000 naira, to about 100,000 naira, following the criticism and controversy that trailed their proposal, which was considered outrageous and unrealistic. Well, joining me on the program to shed more light on this and also discuss it is Public Affairs Analyst Jide Ojo. Thank you for your time, Jide, on the program. Now, let me first start off with this. The industrial action that happened, Nigerians, of course, I would say in a long while may have not noticed this level of compliance. We saw associations from across sectors, in solidarity, shutting down, from power to health, even to banking. But people thought maybe to extend beyond a day or two, but the second day was called off. I'd just like to know your reaction as regards the length, of the industrial action, even though we understand it's been suspended. But did it hit you by surprise that it was suspended so soon?
No, it didn't. It didn't surprise me that it was suspended the second day, because the labor unions also are gauging the mood of the nation, and having shut down the national grid, the hospitals, the airports, the banks, they know that if this strike is protracted, the populace will bounce on them, and that would be counterproductive to what they set out to achieve. So, you must know when to retreat, you must know when to surrender. The issue of no retreat, no surrender, I know there is a film like that, but in contemporary warfare, you must know when to retreat, you must know when to surrender. And of course, when you look at the position of NLs and TUC, even if they get 100,000 minimum wage, it's only less than 10% of the population that will benefit from the payment. So 90% of us who are not working in organized private sector, who are not government employee, will not benefit. So there are millions of Nigerians who live day by day, the commercial cycle riders, the road transport workers, the farmers and artisans. Many of them live on daily income, daily wages. So if you shut down the national grid and they cannot work, you shut down the roads, they cannot travel, they cannot go to their place of work. At the end of the day, you find out that the unionists are in a tiny minority, and people can descend on them and force them. So it's in their best interest. More so, we must also put in context the fact that same Monday, there was an emergency meeting that the labor unions had with the Secretary to the Federal Government, Senator George Akume, and where he addressed the press and said federal government is open to pay more than 60,000 minimum wage, and the president has set machinery in motion that this whole negotiation should be concluded within 1 week, which is why the labor itself said they are suspending the strike for 5 days, because they believe that since the president has indirectly waded in, and he has given them assurance that he is willing to pay over 60,000, then there will be no need for them to continue the shutdown and lockdown on the second day. Yes.
All right. I mean, as this was on, quite a number of reactions, came through, both from the government, from private individuals, who had opinion on the matter and all. I would just, like to know your take on some of these reactions as I, bring it up. At some point, one of the aides to the president actually said that the objective of the strike, particularly from the labor leaders, was more political than the actual reason. I'm talking of Bayo Ononuga. In a tweet, he said that there's some sort of political coloration to that particular activity. I'd like to know your reaction to that, vis-a-vis also the fact that back then the Attorney General also said that those who participated in the strike action might actually, be doing so, against what the law actually says. At some point, it was even stated that workers might be risking 6 months jail term. I just want to quickly know your reactions to this before we, of course, move to some other issues on the matter.
I'm not moved by whatever Bayo Ononuga said or whatever the Attorney General said. In physics, elementary physics, we are told that action and reaction are equal and opposite. Don't forget, the labor law stipulated that 6 months to the expiration of the current or extant minimum wage, 6 months, there should be empaneled a new negotiating team that will bet the new minimum wage. So 6 months to April 2024 is November 2023. As of November, the president has not empaneled the Tripartite Committee. In fact, should I remind you that the Tripartite Committee was only empaneled on January 30th, 2024, 3 months behind schedule. And for the past 3 months, there have been only very few meetings have been held. So it is actually the government that is that is in the wrong by not empaneling a negotiation team early enough for all these negotiations to have been concluded. Because if that negotiation team, 37 members that was eventually empaneled on January 30, if they have been set up and inaugurated in November, that would have given them sufficient time to do the back and forth. So, and then you see lack of seriousness on the part of federal government and other the government negotiation team. Why would they be offering ridiculous sums of money like, I think at some point they were offering 35,000 naira, or is it 50,000, 52,000 naira, when the cost of living has risen by over 200, 300%. You cannot, the naira has been devalued, the purchasing power of the naira has been weakened, the 30,000 naira is not even buying toiletries in many homes. So how then do you want the labor, the workers to survive? Meanwhile, from May 1st, 2023, President Tinubu had consistently promised the workers living wage. So will you call 52,000 or 54,000 that was initially offered a living wage, when after the 30,000, you agreed to pay wage award of 35,000 on top of the 30,000 minimum wage, which comes to 65,000. And that, I assume, is what you have been paying these workers since September of 2023, even though government may be owing a month or two in the wage award, in arrears of the wage award. But at least it was agreed in October 2nd meeting and the 15-point resolution that by the wage award will be paid till when a new minimum wage comes into effect. So if you already are paying 65,000 to the least paid worker by virtue of national minimum wage of 30,000 and 35,000 wage award, that's already 65. Why then would you now be proposing to pay 54,000 as the official minimum wage? So for me, our government was not sincere. So whatever, I don't see any political coloration in what the NLC has done.
But do you think? But do you think? Are you of the opinion that
inconveniences that average Nigerians suffered during that shutdown on Monday and Tuesday?
But are you of the opinion that the demand of labor itself was, according to some, pretty much unrealistic? I mean, their original demand was over 600,000, reviewed downwards to about 400,000 plus, and of course there are speculations that they might settle for 100,000 naira. Even though, you know, when some research was done, it was realized that Nigeria pays one of the lowest minimum wage rate, you know, on the African continent. I mean, if one is to estimate it in dollars compared to other countries, Nigeria actually currently has one of the least when it comes to minimum wage payment. But my question to you is this: do you think that the demand of labor is pretty much unreasonable and might, you know, put some sort of toll, pressure on states to keep up?
Well, I agree with you that the labor's demand was unreasonable. About a month ago, I did an article on the behest of this day newspaper, where I examined the pros and cons of that 615,000 minimum wage that was being proposed. And I did say, what for me is most reasonable in this is between 70 and 100,000 naira max. Maximum of 100,000, minimum of 70,000. But you know, the labor unions have their reason why they went that high. It's like when you go to the market, some traders will tell you ridiculous sum. Whether you want to buy spare parts or you want to buy clothing materials or you want to buy, they'll tell you ridiculous sums. They know that you are going to negotiate. So they want to give you a feeling that you have made a good buy. So by the time they went high up, they know that at the end of the day, this is actually where they are coming to, where labor was coming to, 100,000. But they need to start from 600,000 so that their members will see that, oh, they really fought gallantly for our interests. And I can tell you for free, even that 100,000 federal government will not pay, because that will mean more than 3 times the current minimum wage. And while the federal government may find it convenient to pay because it owes the lion's share of the resources of the country, the states, did you know or did you not read that some states are not even paying the 30,000 minimum wage? Some states that, like Sanfala said, they will just start to pay. They just recently,
of course, upgraded to that. Yes.
So how would you expect that kind of state to now say it will pay you 100,000? What I think will likely happen, and history beckons, is that they might find a midway to like 70,000 and then leave it at that, since it's also going to be up for review in another 5 years. Because there are 2 factors. Let me land on this, please. There are 2 things you need to understand about minimum wage negotiation. Is affordability and sustainability. If the unions push the government side and organized private sector to the minimum of 100,000, yes, government may be compelled to agree, but just like we have cited the case of Sanfara, they will agree on paper, but they will not pay. And they will tell their workers in the state this is how much you can pay. If you don't want to take, you can resign. Or government will engage in what is called staff rationalization. So people eventually must not lose sight of those two key factors, affordability and sustainability. That's the point I want to make, bro.
I mean, talking about affordability and sustainability, I mean, these are key areas you mentioned. Some also have suggested that not all the states, just like you mentioned Zamfara State, for instance, just recently upgrading, and some states not being able to, of course, meet up with that, with the 30,000 naira benchmark as of now. Some are suggesting that why don't Labour approach this issue of minimum wage on state level? So you look at certain states, the standard of living there, the capacity of living there, what it takes to rent a house, feed, and all of that, and also the capacity of the state in terms of internally generated revenue and the abilities to pay, and then have individual negotiations either with states or regions, so that at the end of the day, robust, of course, outcomes that are, sustainable and affordable is reached, by everyone. I would just like to know if Labour's approach on this matter is the right way.
Well, I agree with you 100% that there should be state-level negotiation, and that this negotiation should actually be decentralized. But Labour will not hear of it. They will keep telling you about ILO convention, that's International Labour Organization Convention, the Geneva Convention, the Constitution of Nigeria, the Labour Act of Nigeria. That's what they will keep citing for you. And they have said, states are not equally endowed. Let me shock you. Lagos State, where you have your headquarters, did you know that the Lagos State budget for 2024 is 2.2 trillion? The budget for Rivers State is 800 billion. But I'm talking to you from Abuja. The budget of Nasarawa State, which is just close by, is just 115 billion. So you can see the disparity. While some states can budget as high as 2 trillion, another state is budgeting just a little over 100 billion. I don't know what the total budget of Ekiti State is. I don't know the total budget of Zamfara. So it will have been most reasonable to decentralize this minimum wage negotiation, allow the labor union, the state chapter, to negotiate with the governor and see what they can come up with. Because, as you have rightly pointed out, states are not equally endowed, whether in terms of internally generated revenue or in terms of monthly FAC allocation that they receive from federal government. You will know that every month, Rivers will collect more, Lagos will collect more from federation accounts than Sokoto or than Yobe or than Osun. So to that extent, you do not expect that Osun will pay the same amount as Delta will pay, or that Osun will pay the same amount as Kano will pay, because they are not equally endowed, both in terms of federation allocation, FAC allocation, and in terms of internally generated revenue. But what the Labour has always cited is all these plethora of laws saying that no, ILO convention does not support that, the labor law of Nigeria does not support that, and all of that. Well, we see how it goes. Because the catch is even that the organized private sector, which we have not even talked about, many of the organized private sector cannot even pay this 100,000 minimum wage, even if it is agreed to. Because what it means is that in New Central TV, the gatekeeper there will have nothing less than 100,000. The cleaner there will have nothing less than 100,000. Now, how can, when you look at income and the expenditure of the organization, perhaps the investor, the founder, the person who established your station has not even broken even. That means when you say somebody break even, that means his expenditure and income has matched. They are balanced. You are not talking of profit at that point. You find out that many media houses are not even paying salaries, even with all the old wages. So what I'm saying, I just cited that even many banks and financial institutions, what they have resorted to is what is called casualization. They now casualize staff, they just get a recruiting agency to bring them staff with certain requisite skill, but they will not give them official letter of the bank or the financial institution. They will only get the letter from the recruitment agency. So the bank will pay the recruitment agency, who will pay the casual staff. At the end of the day, if you stay 10, 20 years as a casual staff, you are going home with your last pay. There is no pension, no gratuity, no health benefits, no transport allowance, and all of that.
You have raised a very, very important angle to this conversation. As regards, should a certain figure that might not be sustainable, particularly for the private sector, be reached, how will they survive? How will they cope? And then you would have situations like you just painted. But another side to this conversation also, particularly as regards the approach of the Labour, is should Labour be asking for an increase in money or a drop in the standard of living? What do I mean? So, for instance, pivotal areas that make up survival: feeding, accommodation, transportation. Right now, all of that has gone up at very, very astronomical percentages. Hence, the reason for the agitation for an increase in finances. This is not the first time this has happened. I mean, we've seen it build up over time. So my question is this: should Labour focus more on the quantity of money in people's pockets, or the value in terms of purchasing power, and how less can get you more, in their struggle?
Well, again, it's a catch-22 situation. It will have been ideal to say, give us accommodation, give us free transportation, give us meal allowance. Don't forget, all along, even while the minimum wage negotiation hasn't come up, did you know that Buhari increased allowances of workers last year and even last year and 2022? For instance, before this negotiation started, remember, federal government announced that some tertiary institutions, some medical institutions, they have now agreed to pay them certain allowances. Now, allowances are the ones that are not tax deductible. So you don't tax allowance. You tax only the salary. But the issue for me, why I say it's the catch-22 situation, is that where are the affordable housing? Where are the affordable transportation? The federal government of Tinubu on July 31, 2020, President Tinubu addressed the nation and promised that latest by March 2024, there will be, 3,000 CNG buses on the road. Not one. This is June 20, this 3 months behind schedule. Not one of these compressed natural gas vehicles is on the road. Where are the low-cost housing that is meant for workers so that they won't have to pay huge rent. The houses are not there. Gone are those days where government build and give to workers to pay over a 15-year period and all of that. That's why in Lagos we have Jakonde housing estate that is all over Lagos State, where workers of Lagos State were given a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom flat, and they pay over a long period of time. But since the Jakonde era, has there been any other government that has provided affordable housing to workers? The one Fashola did in Lagos, was it affordable to ordinary workers? So the point I'm making is that the workers may have evaluated the situation and see that it's better for them to collect cash. And ironically, the moment you announce a new minimum wage, by whatever name you call it, price of commodities will rise in the market. Forgetting that the traders will forget that only a infinitesimal number of Nigerians are working with government or organized private sector. Okay. So we are boxed in, but let them resolve this, because even if by the end of this week they agree to an amount, remember they still have to take it. The President Tinubu will still have to sponsor it as an executive bill to the National Assembly to be passed into law, and then it will sign before it will come into effect. So there is still a number of hurdles to cross, even as we still talk about negotiating the minimum wage now.
All right, Jide Ojo, thank you so much for your insights on today's topic. Public Affairs Analyst, of course, speaking with me from Abuja. Once again, thank you for your time.
It's my pleasure. Keep safe.